Mic check, 1 2 3 4. Hi everyone. I'm gonna give it a minute or two just to let people join, but we do have storm chances for tonight, so I wanted to make sure that we were all kind of up to date as to what to expect, and also I wanted to make sure that you knew where kind of the strongest storms are right now, and what we have going on for the rest of this evening. Hopefully you have enjoyed today as much as possible. Most of us have been nice and quiet for the majority of the day, so that's been pretty nice. Hopefully you got to hang out at the pool for a little bit. We'll go ahead and get started here in a minute or two. I'll wait a little bit longer to see if other people join, but yeah. Hi, Alex. And no, I'm not talking to myself. I guess I can just go ahead and get started. I hope, again, like I said, I hope you guys have had a good day. It's been pretty nice and quiet for the most part, but we do have a severe weather threat for today. As you can see, actually, by that orange polygon on radar, that is a severe thunderstorm warning that includes Rockingham and Caswell counties. So you can see radar is pretty active for the most part. We're still quiet though in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point, as well as Burlington. Most of Davidson County is nice and quiet. Honestly, the majority of Randolph County is quiet too, except for one lone little cell. So let's kind of zoom in here. This is that Rockingham County, Caswell County severe thunderstorm warning. This goes until 6:45, so about another 45-ish minutes on this warning, and it does include Reidsville. The strongest part of the storm is actually just northwest of, I would say, Reidsville proper, I guess is how you would say that, like downtown Reidsville area. If I zoom in here, you can see kind of where that storm is. So basically kind of between Wentworth and Reidsville, and west of 29. This is moving kind of off to the northeast at about 20 miles an hour. So heads up if you're in Ruffin. I know you're already starting to see some rain with that as well. It does actually look like this storm itself has kind of decreased in intensity, because if we look at it kind of, let's see if I can back it up a little bit. When we see these deep reds right there with all the lightning, that was around 5:40. That was probably when it was kind of more of its strongest, and now we're seeing a little bit less of that deep red, but we do still have that severe thunderstorm warning, again, like I said, on that. So that's kind of what we're seeing with this storm. It's warned for winds up to 60 miles an hour and quarter-sized hail. And again, it's moving northeast at about 20 miles an hour. This is the other storm that I've been watching. We're starting to see purples in it, which usually means that it's getting pretty tall up in the sky, so it's reaching high up. Typically when that happens, we start to get hail, and this is just off to the east of 73, as well as off to the northeast and kind of northwest of Asheboro and Ramsor. So east of Newmarket. It's also kind of off to the east of Randleman, but that's something that we'll be watching. Let me see if I can pull up hail tracks. Yeah, so there is a little bit of hail popping up at this, which makes sense because, again, that purple means it's reaching high into the sky, and when we see the taller thunderstorms, that's kind of when we start to tap into that hail potential. Right now it looks like it's just about half-inch hail according to radar estimates, but it also looks like it's kind of dropped a little bit slightly in intensity. So that's what's going on in Randolph County, excuse me. again, off to the northeast of Asheboro. So here's what we're looking at for the rest of the foothills. Right now, it's kind of just scattered general thunderstorms in portions of Ashe and Allegheny counties, also occurring throughout Wilkesboro, or Wilkes County in general, kind of off to the south, actually, of Wilkesboro itself. Yadkinville, it looks like for the most part, is quiet right now. Maybe a light shower in the southwestern part of the county. And then Surry County seeing some of that rain as well, from Pilot Mountain to pretty much 77. Dobson seeing some of that rain. And this also is coming with like the occasional lightning strike. If we go east into portions of Stokes County, you can see Danbury and Roll Hall seeing some of that rain. King, Quaker Gap seeing some of that rain as well. It looks like there's not a whole lot of lightning right now, which is always a good thing. When we see a lot of lightning, that usually means that storms are more intense. So we don't have that happening on radar right now, which again is a good thing. Here's a look though at the severe weather outlook for today. So this forecast has actually pretty much been gradually shifting, or changing, I guess I should say, throughout the day. So if you remember yesterday, if you were watching our newscast last night, I mentioned that we were not expecting severe weather today. Well, that has changed. The Storm Prediction Center this morning put out a level 1 risk, and then with the pretty much around noon update, they came out with a level 1 and a level 2 threat for our viewing area. So if we zoom in to this, we can kind of see what counties are included in which levels, which I don't really necessarily want to get completely caught up on the levels of the severe threat for today. Just know that any of these storms that we're seeing on radar right now, if they're able to get strong enough, are going to have that potential to reach severe limits. And I'll mention what the main threats are in just a minute. But that slight risk does include High Point, portions of Greensboro and Guilford County, pretty much. Forsyth County, Winston-Salem is included in that level 2 threat. Asheboro, Mocksville, Lexington, Thomasville, Salisbury, and then most of Chatham County for the most part is also included in that. Southern Alamance County is included in that. And then the rest of our viewing area with that green color, not the very, very pale kind of greenish color, but the just kind of regular old green that you're seeing on your screen, that is our level 1 threat. So that's a marginal risk and a slight risk for severe weather. That basically means that the better threat or environment for stronger storms today is actually going to be in that yellow area, that slight threat. So again, that does include Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point. As well as Asheboro, all of Davidson County. As far as our main threats with any of the stronger storms, the hail potential is there if storms are able to get tall enough, like I was mentioning. But our main concern today is going to be for damaging winds, and that was actually why they put out that level 2 risk for severe weather for today. So that is going to be our main concern. It looks like our best window is pretty much from now through about 10 p.m. tonight. At the absolute, I would say latest, it would be 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock. But I think 10 o'clock we should be okay, and I'll have a look at that future cast in a minute. The flooding potential should be low as well. However, we already do have some flood advisories out in some counties. So that basically just means that if we have storms that are able to sit in one area or work over the same area for an extended period of time, that would be when that flooding potential would kind of come into play. The tornado threat for today is very, very low. I never want to say that there's no threat for it, because that's when it comes to weather and life in general, I guess. Anything is possible. So we are monitoring for any kind of rotation, but that is not our main concern for today. But it is something that we'll watch, and obviously we would break into regular programming on your television if something like that were to be issued. So this is kind of the general overview of the damaging wind threat for today. So that slight risk that I was talking about, that included Winston-Salem, Greensboro, High Point, Davidson County, everything, that's also where this damaging wind threat is highlighted in yellow as well. So the main threat today is damaging winds. And this is kind of just showing that, but all of us have the potential to see those strong winds. There's already been a severe thunderstorm warning that was in Southern Virginia that had a considerable tag on it, which basically just means that it could cause considerable damage, and there were winds to 70 miles an hour with that storm. So the baseline for a severe thunderstorm warning to be issued is 60-mile-an-hour winds. So that was a little bit stronger than that baseline, which is why that kind of considerable tag was added. And that, I believe that was in Pittsylvania County. It could have actually been in Henry County, but it was in one of those two. Either way, it was Southern Virginia. So that's going to be something that we're going to be watching today. And again, that's technically not in that highest quote unquote level for severe weather for today. So that is also something to keep in mind. So just because you're not in that highest level of threat doesn't mean that you won't see those higher threats, okay? As far as the large hail potential goes, we're not technically, the Storm Prediction Center has not put anything out as far as the hail potential for today. The National Weather Service, though, in Raleigh did mention that there could be isolated instances of large hail. To me, that means maybe quarter size to up to, I would say quarter size is going to be our main concern, honestly, today, if we see any hail able to form in these storms. I'll just leave it at that. This is going to be their tornado probabilities. Notice there's nothing on it. So again, just because there's nothing on it doesn't mean it's zero. It just means that we're not reaching that criteria for maybe a 2 or a 5% chance for that tornado threat. So we should not be concerned with tornadoes, but with the trends that we've been in recently and what happened in Nash and Edgecombe County this week, we're just going to be watching any storms that pop up for rotation. So I will be here, I'll be monitoring radar, and again, if we need to break in, we will break in. But that is not our main concern today. It is winds, like I said earlier. So here's what the rest of Future Sky Forecast is saying. I'm just going to note that this is showing you 415. So I've noticed since I've been in that data, or the Futurecast models, or so that you would say, that we use when we're forecasting, have been a little behind schedule. So we're going to add about 2 hours to this time frame, okay? Because this is about similar to what we're seeing on radar right now for the most part. And so we're going to pretend this is 6:15, okay? So 6:15, we've got the storms. As we get closer to about 5, or I guess it would be, this is confusing to me, so this is confusing to you, so I apologize. But basically, our timing for right now is going to be pretty much 6 to 10 p.m. for these storms, okay? This is what could happen over the next few hours if we ignore the time stamp on it, okay? So just keep that in mind. So we watch that storm threat kind of push through. When we see storms become more of a line, that is when we're looking at the possibility for that damaging wind threat to take over. When we have more isolated storms, we can definitely still get damaging winds, but sometimes when they're all together, it's kind of like a wave where it just like pushes, right? It's like whoosh, and then you get the leading ledge of the damaging winds ahead of the storm. So that is what we're concerned about today. That was a very dramatic way to say that, but that's what we're going to be expecting through the rest of this evening. The further east it moves, the kind of less of a line it gets and more of a cluster. Usually when we see clusters of storms kind of together, we see maybe even more of a flooding threat, to be honest, just because there's just a lot of heavy rainfall and over an area for an extended period of time. So by the time we get to about 10 o'clock, we're quiet. So that is some good news for us. Again, we'll just keep an eye on things, but we should start to see things quieting down kind of as you're heading to bed. Your kids, if you have the kids, may be dealing with some thunder heading to bed. So I know sometimes that's not great. So keep that in mind as well too. Our temperatures today have also been on the cooler side. We were in the mid 80s at one point. Now we're seeing temperatures dropping a little bit. Some of us are in the upper 70s, 79 in Greensboro and 77 in Winston-Salem. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, so 84 degrees in High Point. So some of us are still in the mid 80s, but we're also starting to see those temperatures kind of cool down a little bit because of the rain that's on radar right now, which is part of the reason Mount Airy is in the mid 60s, as well as why Martinsville is in the upper 60s. Through the rest of tonight, our temperatures for the most part going to be sitting in the upper 70s, with the exception of some of us who see those storms. We could see temperatures a little bit cooler than that. Into tomorrow, things get a little bit quieter. We start to see decreasing clouds throughout the day. We're in the upper 60s in the morning. Our highs top out in the mid 80s again. And then a 10% chance of showers or thunderstorms tomorrow, which basically means we shouldn't see anything. Scattered storms overnight again, or at least the early overnight, and then we start to see things quiet down into tomorrow morning. And then by the afternoon, we're in the mid 80s, clouds in the morning, sunshine in the afternoon. Your 7-day forecast, we're in the mid 80s on Monday, and then notice that our temperatures get significantly warmer by the time we get to Tuesday. And then the end of the week, especially, we're seeing those temperatures returning to the 90s or almost to the mid 90s by Thursday. So somewhere around 93 degrees. We are still going to have the humidity, although it's just going to feel hot is really going to be the thing this week. And lots of sunshine, stray showers maybe, the occasional stray shower in the afternoon just because it's that time of year. And then a little bit better rain chances in the weekend, but not much. But we stay in the 90s. So that is your 7-day. That's what's going on radar as well. If you guys want me to go back to radar, I can. But again, that one severe thunderstorm warning is in effect for Rockingham and Caswell counties until 6:45. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And again, we'll keep an eye on things for tonight. Enjoy your day.